You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones as we get you ready for Week 17 of the 2024 CFL season. Tons of playoff implications on the line. A fun game on tap in Edmonton where I will be judging a super prestigious competition. We will get to that right away here. We'll start with some news. The Montreal Alouettes are on bye this week, but they have extended receiver Cole Spieker right through the 2026 season. He's played 15 games this year, and it's already a career year for Cole Spieker. 710 yards, 7 touchdowns. Man, he makes some beauty catches in the clutch for the Alouettes. So it is a great signing for the Owls, Sheldon.
Yeah, he's been clutch ever since Tyson Philpott went down and with Austin Mack coming back and not getting into the lineup. So it's awesome news for the Alouettes getting to extend him for 2 more years.
Yeah, love to have him in the league and making catches for the Alouettes. Now, let's go through.
There's one other piece of news that you might have missed. There was a trade on the trade deadline today.
Actually, yeah, I had that under the BC Lions, but don't worry, we'll talk about it now because Jesh Renantwi acquired by the BC Lions for a 3rd-round pick. The CFL Trade Deadline usually comes and goes without anything, but this one's got some interesting implications to it. Did the Lions just acquire the dribble punt? Are the Alouettes in control of another secret weapon where they're going to be able to do this? I have so many questions, man.
I know. I thought it was quite interesting because he's a good young Canadian player. I just didn't see why the Alouettes would kind of want to move on from him. So kind of interesting there. Sorry to take that away from earlier on the show there.
This deserves to be near the top.
I would love to see BC do the dribble kick. I'm here for the dribble kick. Let's see what happens here. Very interesting. Just because, like you said, we're not used to trades on the trade deadline. So I just thought, it's kind of definitely newsworthy.
Well, now if it ends up being BC Montreal in the Grey Cup, which right now it doesn't look like it's trending that way, I would love to see the battle of the dribble. You'd think the Owls would be ready for it if it came to that, but
you would think.
I'm ready for that. Let's look at your power rankings, though, where the Bombers remain the kings of the CFL when it comes to your power rankings. The Ticats on a hot streak up to number 2. The Owls are down to 3. The Riders up to 4. The Elks down to 5. The Argos up to 6. The Lions down to 7. The Red Blacks down to 8. And for our old pal Darren, the Stampeders remain in number 9. Darren, sorry, buddy. I know you think it's Stampeder hate, but they are 4-9-1 at some point. It's not Stampeder hate. It's just reality, Sheldon.
Yeah, this is the year that Rider fans, Elks fans, Lions fans, Bombers fans, everyone else other than Stamp fans have been waiting for it. They will miss the playoffs finally.
For the first time since 2004. However, Elks fans' second favorite team this week is Calgary, which I know some Elks fans are saying, hey, if we got to miss the playoffs, we're going to take Calgary with us. But I think the majority probably want their hopes to stay alive for another week. But hey, there's a lot of playoff implications this week. Let's try to go through it. The Bombers can actually lock up the West in Week 17, but it does need to be paired with a Saskatchewan loss to claim the West. But any combination of a BC loss and a Saskatchewan loss will at least secure home field for a playoff game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, Saskatchewan can also clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2021 this week. A win from them would have to be paired with a Calgary loss and a Hamilton loss. And BC can clinch as well if they win, as well as Hamilton losing and Edmonton losing. So there is only 3 games this week, but a lot of playoff implications on the line. The team is number 2 in your power rankings, and they're hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Friday Night Football. It's the early game. The Bombers are 4.5-point favorites as they go to the hammer. The over-under at 50.5. But Sheldon, Winnipeg has not won a regular season game in Hamilton in 7 years. Any guess on who that quarterback was for the Bombers back then?
Jeez. Matt Nichols? Or is that even before Matt Nichols?
This person was a Saskatchewan Roughrider.
Evan Glenn. Drew Willie.
Drew Willie.
Wow. Free Willie. That was fun.
Oh, man. There was once upon a time when he was the next big thing. Was there the one Labor Day when the Bombers were like 7-1 and the Riders were 1-7 and the Riders won against Drew Willie?
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite comical that way.
Was that Brett Smith for the Riders or something? Maybe that year.
Was it Brett Smith, Seth Nagy? That was a rough year. Tino Sinceri.
Oh boy,
he had good hair though.
He did. Just like you, man.
Crazy.
Just like you.
Oh, thank you. It's coming. It's crazy to think with how good Winnipeg has been in the past, 5-ish years that they haven't been able to win in Hamilton. That's very interesting.
They did win a Grey Cup there against the hometown Ticats in 2021, but they did lose a Grey Cup to the Montreal Alouettes as well. So very tough times in the hammer for the Blue Bombers. And they could be without one of their hottest receivers, and that's Nick Dembski. He's questionable for this week, but man, he's been pretty valuable, and that Buck Pierce offense has been firing on all cylinders, and Dembski's one of those guys that they use him from the backfield. They use him all over the place, and he burns guys deep. He burns defenses from the backfield. That's a piece that you want on the field as often as he can get, and the Bombers could be without him.
Yeah, like you saw how he just kind of started the onslaught of the game last week against Edmonton with his big deep shot down the middle there. It's very interesting because I think he kind of started slow as well as all the other Bombers, but he's kind of come into his own here, and I don't remember him actually getting hurt in the game, but I also didn't really pay attention in the second half that much. But hopefully he's good to go because we need our star players. And this, like we said, this is going to be hopefully lives up to its hype of these two, future Hall of Fame quarterbacks duking it out here.
Yeah, I mean, Bo he's been balling out for a little while now, and Zach over the past couple games, I guess all he had to do was play Edmonton and turn his season around.
Yeah.
But the pressure's on Hamilton.
For sure.
And Winnipeg's on a bit of a hot streak, so can that momentum carry? Well, yeah, they're both on hot streaks right now. This is I think it's the game of the week. Saskatchewan and Edmonton's going to be fun, but in this one, I mean, the old veteran quarterbacks doing their thing. Bo Levi Mitchell over the past 4 games has been averaging almost 330 yards a game. It's the Boveralls, man. It can't be explained.
Oh, and he'll definitely be wearing them again. Yeah, I don't understand how this is happening, but I think I think in his head, I think Bo is very motivated by, like, outside noise. I think he likes to use, locker room material, we'll say bulletin board material, like, to fuel him. And I think, he's probably hearing a lot of chatter of how, he might be the MOP, but why would he be the MOP if they're going to miss the playoffs? He also has like we say, the fire from being benched earlier in the season when might not have been his fault that they were losing. So it's very interesting to see how he's been able to turn this around, and just been fun to watch as a fan of the league. So hopefully it continues. Obviously, as a Rider fan, I'll be cheering for Winnipeg to lose because that we still have a chance at first place. But again, I just want to see a good game. I hope it lives up to its potential.
It's amazing that after Winnipeg's slow start to the year that they can lock up the West this week. It's amazing that, Saskatchewan had won a game for a couple months and they're still in the running for first place if the Bombers do lose here and falter in the last few games here. And then for Hamilton, I'm interested to watch the running back situation because both Greg Bell and James Butler were on the roster last week, but then they decided to scratch Butler. Now Greg Bell is listed as doubtful. He's been limited in practice, dealing with the rib issue. He did go down in the game last week, and we saw him holding his ribs, so he is doubtful for Friday. We could see a pretty healthy James Butler coming into play here. And I guess that's a good problem to have for the Ticats. He's good catching the ball. He can run the ball as well. So that's just another thing that the Bombers are going to have to look out for.
Yeah, and he's another guy who maybe has been unceremoniously benched and is going to have a chip on his shoulder to try to, play for a contract somewhere next year, because it doesn't look like he's kind of in the plans going forward there. I hope he has a good game. Spoiler alert, I think he might be in my lineup. But I think, like you said, he's a dual threat. He can catch out of the backfield. He can slam it down your throat there. So Winnipeg isn't easy to run on, but they have been able to be run on. So the opportunity is definitely there.
Now, the last time these teams played, the Ticat offense couldn't get going. Bo couldn't get going against the Bombers. Something's different here, and I don't think these Bombers played the Chris Jones Ticats, which this is fascinating what has happened there. At one point, I think probably Bo was benched and Chris Jones was fired, almost the same time. And now, look, the playoff hopes are still very slim. But this has been the season where anything can and will happen. So, and it starts with this game on Friday night. The Bombers giving up 109.3 rush yards a game. So you can run on them. But the same goes for Hamilton, 110 rush yards a game. And Brady Oliveira, he's been running downhill on a treadmill over the past few weeks. And then even if Nick Dembski misses, we saw what happened last week when Carrick Wheatfall made the return to the lineup for the Bombers. He made a big catch. They got Ontario Wilson still there. Kenny the King is rolling. Yeah. And Zach, it just so happens that he's struggled in his former digs since going to Winnipeg. You can't be 30 games over 500 everywhere like they are, at Princess Auto Stadium. But he's got weapons to throw to. Both quarterbacks do. And I think the big question will be, can Bo throw around Willie? And can the Ticats continue to keep him clean, because that offensive line has been very impressive when it comes to that.
Yeah, and Bo's the kind of guy, he doesn't have as quick a release as he used to, so he needs to have that time. But when he is given time, it's just he's been surgical. He's been able to throw the ball right where it needs to go. I know he's had some drops from his receivers, but like even last week in that BC game, he started out not great in the first quarter because there was some drops, and I think that kind of got into his head. But just whatever happened, a flip was switched, or a switch was flipped in the second half, and he just kind of went off to an almost record pace. So I think we've seen that the Bombers are susceptible to that. So we'll see if he's able to, do it in a do or die situation.
And one more note on the Ticats, Shamar Bridges, it's too bad. It looks like he's not going to break that rookie reception record set by Darrell Walker years ago, because Shamar's going to miss this game. They listed as a quad injury on the injury report. He has not practiced this week. He's already been ruled out for Friday night home against the Bombers. Well, this game, the BC Lions 7.5-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders. The over-under at 53.5. Now, I don't have the stats on this, but the Lions must be the team that have lost the most while being listed as favorites. I get that they're the favorites against the Stampeders. I don't have any confidence and them winning this game. Now, if you look at last week, it was Bo and the Ticat offense just going off in the second half, and the Lions couldn't make a stop. I don't think that the Stamps have that ability to do it, but they're coming off the bye. Dave Dickenson fired up. Like, do you think there's big changes on the horizon in Winnipeg? Like, and I quote, Dave Dickenson goes, "I'm effing here to work." Like, it's pretty tense times at McMahon Stadium. The receivers or the players are arguing in the locker room, all sorts of things going on there, but they haven't missed the playoffs in 20 years. Their back's against the wall. I mean, a 6-12 ain't gonna make the playoffs like it did last year.
Well, it's the team and Dave Dickenson and the players. They're just kind of feeling the heat that and the stress that the fans have been feeling, because they're so used to, winning. They're so used to having a hold in the kind of their own destiny when it comes to the playoffs for the last 20 years, other than maybe last year when they needed Saskatchewan to completely fall apart to make the playoffs. But obviously the pressure is getting to Dickenson. He's fired up in his answer to the media there. But the writing's on the wall there. They're just not able to get the job done. Having said that, their offense at times has still been powerful, and BC's defense at times has been terrible. So this, BC being favored 7.5 points, that's a lot, but BC has shown that they're able to score 40 points in a half, like, quickly, when it comes to just how talented they are on offense. It just kind of comes down to which BC Lions team is going to show up, and are all three phases of the team going to be able to show up at the same time? That's kind of the question here, because more often than not, the same thing has happened with Calgary. All three phases hasn't shown up, and that's why they've only won 4 games.
Yeah, Matthew Betts, since he came back, he did make an impact when he first came back, but it's been pretty quiet lately. And obviously they weren't getting to Bo last week. Now, Jake Maier, he hasn't had a really good game since, when they played BC. He had a great game. Now I'm looking back at, that's back in the summer. That's week 7. He did have a 373-yard game against Toronto in week 10, a touchdown and an interception. But his best game of the year, it probably was the one that came against the BC Lions in week 7. 25 of 32, 307 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So Jake does have the ability to have a good game and he did do it against this team not long ago. So it can happen. Will it happen? Well, the Lions are going to need to pressure him and make him uncomfortable because, let's face it, the Stamps do have the ability to run. They can. Dedrick Mills has had some very nice games, and I think he's got a bright future in the CFL. I don't know. Like, is this Jake Maier's last start? Like, if they lose, are the Stamps going to be looking at Logan Bonner or Touchdown Tommy the rest of the way? I think that's a valid question.
For sure. Is he, like, more so than like Bo Levi or Vernon Adams or even Trevor Harris? I think Jake Maier is a huge question mark for whether he's going to be in Calgary as a starter next year, because so far it's shown that he hasn't been able to consistently be the guy that Calgary has been looking for. They've had a factory, and it seems like, it's always next man up, next QB, Hall of Famer, Grey Cup. Like, that's not happening right now. I can confidently say that Jake Maier's not close to being a Grey Cup quarterback right now. But he's shown flashes of brilliance, and Dave Dickinson's a hell of a quarterback coach. So, like, you would think that if there's somebody who can get it out of him, it's him. But is he wearing too many hats so that he's not able to spend that time coaching him up? So Dave Dickinson might effing be there to work, but maybe he's got too much work to do and he's not able to work enough at the certain spots that he needs to.
It's quite interesting because both Alberta teams are used to winning, used to Grey Cups. And
this has never happened if it happens.
Both Alberta teams missing the playoffs?
Yeah, it's never happened.
Wow.
I've read that. It's never happened. And maybe I'm wrong, but I have read that they've, since whatever format we're in now, they have never missed the playoffs together. So, and it's very close to happening. But again, they could still both make the playoffs because of how crazy the season is.
I feel like this calls for a toilet bowl to decide it all in the middle in Red Deer, Alberta. Let's make it happen to have the ultimate loser. I'd buy tickets for that one.
I think you're calling the game on that.
I'm available. I am totally available. Now, the BC Lions, I don't know if the newest member of the BC Lions, Jesh Renantwi, is going to be on the field, but certainly depth there for David Mackey, Canadian who sometimes has been taking short yardage snaps. It looks like he's going to be back practicing. Javon Katoy, the big Canadian receiver, is questionable, dealing with an ankle injury, and defensive back Seontae Evans is out, dealing with a personal issue, a non-football related thing. But this one, more than any other game, and I know that Nathan Rourke, he can make things happen. This feels like a William Stanback game to me, because I think CFL offenses often look at other offense and they see what works and then they put it into their own game plan. And the fact is the Stampeders have been getting absolutely bowled over with the running game. They don't have the physical ability or intenseness to keep up with O-lines. We saw Rock Armstead put 200 up on them a couple weeks ago in his debut with the Riders. This feels like a big William Stanback game to me, man. If they're just going to let him and feed him the rock, and it might be a long night for the red and white.
Oh, 100%. And BC has been going to William Stanback more and more than they had kind of earlier in the season. So for them to beat Calgary, they need to have that balanced attack because, Calgary's DBs have some guys who can pick the ball off, and Rourke has been susceptible to the interception here this season so far. So being able to have William Stanback grind away the game and get those huge chunk yardages and hopefully a few touchdowns for them, it'll go a long way.
William Stanback has 2 100-yard games in his last 3 games. There was a tough one there in Toronto, but he only did get 6 carries, 21 yards there. But before the Montreal game, he had 93 and a touchdown. He had 99 against Ottawa before that as well, and then he had a 100-yard game against Winnipeg. So actually, since the middle of August, William Stanback has been rolling, and he could continue to roll against the BC Lions. I will be watching to see if Alexander Hollins is going to be back onto the field. He's not listed on the injury report. He did miss last week. But they're going to need to get some receivers going consistently in BC. It just really hasn't happened. Justin McInnes kind of slowed down a little bit. And then Keon Hatcher as well. He's a talented guy, but some of the balls that he's been thrown, he's got to lay out there and try to make a circus catch for them. So it kind of feels like Rourke and the receivers still have some chemistry stuff to work on as the playoffs draw near. Then we've got the Saturday game in Edmonton as the Elks are home to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Riders are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under at 50.5 for this one. I'm going to put the graphic up on the screen. The 2024 Chili Cook-Off at the Elks tailgate. I am so looking forward to this because I am going to be serving as an esteemed judge for the event. I don't know what my guts are going to be doing the next day, but I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what it's going to do to me. It's presented by the Elks Herd. They're a part of the Shotgun Sports Network, Edmonton Sports Talk, our friends at the Turf District, and also You Need a Barbecue, the barbecue store in Sherwood Park. So there's going to be some judges. We're going to try 25 chilies, something like that. That is crazy. But if you're going to be in Edmonton for the game, get there for the chili cook-off. Get there early because there's a People's Choice vote as well. Everybody's welcome to participate in the 2024 chili cook-off. They're building something special at the Edmonton tailgate, and it's so cool. I'm excited to be a part of that on Saturday. Well, let's talk about Edmonton, man. McLeod Bethel-Thompson is going to be getting the start. I don't even know how we recap this. Just a few weeks ago, I thought it was going to be a lock that Jarius Jackson and G. Simon might be getting an extension to lead the Double E into the future. Now I'm just not so sure. The way the quarterback situation has been handled has been interesting, because you remember McLeod Bethel-Thompson was kind of uneven. They put in Trey Ford, and then they start winning. Well, Trey gets hurt, so they put MBT back in, and then he starts winning. And then going into the bye week, after Trey Ford beats McLeod Bethel-Thompson beats Calgary in the Labor Day rematch, they announce Trey Ford's going to be our starting quarterback going forward. He loses one game. Well, they go back to McLeod Bethel-Thompson, and now he's their starter again. Very weird, man. Like, I feel like after MBT won the couple games, hindsight's 2020. I know they ran into the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That doesn't help. But they probably should have stuck with the hot hand at that point. Again, hindsight's 2020. And look, Trey Ford is... If the Elks lose this game and they're officially out of the playoffs, they probably give Trey the reins. But what valuable playing time has he had? He hasn't... He's played a half of football against Winnipeg when playoff hopes were on the line. Other than that, they're 7 games under 500 or out of the playoffs. That's when Trey's been able to play. So, I don't know. It just more and more doesn't seem like he's the guy that they want for the future. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think he's starting to realize that I don't think he wants to be the guy there anymore anyway because of the way that they're treating him. I could easily see, them being at the end of the season, okay, McLeod's gone now. Now it's your team again. And him being like, yeah, no, that's cool. I'm gonna go somewhere else because I'll go where I'm wanted. It's it's kind of baffling. Uh, I agree that they should have went with the hot hand, but maybe they thought they needed to go veteran to once they started winning to keep the momentum going. But uh, I think all in all, if we look at from 50,000 feet, Trey played better than McLeod overall when he had the chance. I think McLeod may have performed a little better when he came in after he lost the job initially. But it's just you're playing with two guys' emotions. You're playing with their careers basically, and having to be able to have the team rally around the guys, and they have different cadences. They have different the way they throw the ball. It's just a lot of things can go wrong there when you're doing too much when you're making too much changes. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting's a good word.
Yeah, I don't know if either quarterback's going to be with the team next year. I do like the predicting. Like, can you see Vernon Adams Jr. leading the Elks into 2025 and Trey Ford backing up Zach Collaros for his last year in Winnipeg? He gets to be on his team with his brother. I don't know. Like, these things are interesting to me. There's the Hamilton factor. Where's Bo gonna go? I don't know. This off.
He's already got a house in Regina, so
that's true.
That's obvious for next year, right?
Saskatchewan might be in the market for a quarterback themselves. Like, what does that add to this whole thing? But I look back, week 9, Riders, Elks in Regina. Trey Ford gets the start. And clearly the Elks became a different team. And a few things happened. Chris Jones was let go. Javon Leake was starting at running back. He also might be starting this week. But the Elks single-handedly destroyed the rushing defense for the Riders and changed the average around. They had 276 rushing yards that week. And I know 170 of them about came from Javon Leake, 2 massive runs of over 50 yards, but the defense had to pay attention to Trey Ford. They don't have to do that with McLeod Bethel-Thompson. So just a completely different game plan here around. And I felt like the Elks' best chance to win were running the ball when they had Ford, Leake, Brown, and Rankin. And look, I'm just a schlub on a podcast, but going against that seems like an interesting decision to me.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I hope they're not just folding up the tent and just looking to next year already, because they still have a chance to make the playoffs. And as whenever you have a chance, you should be trying. But like I said before, it's hard to look at what's happening and dissect it, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not how, like, we typically would see teams run their depth charts and like that. So I don't know. I hope it's a good game. I hope the Riders win, obviously, but I hope it's a good game, and I hope I hope Elks fans can have something to cheer about. But at the same time, I hope that they can, you know, if it's not going to be G-Roy and Jarius, I hope they can find somebody nice and stable and who can, make a full, and I don't want to say a full rebuild again, because there's definitely tools there, but if the tools aren't being used properly and they're just being played around with and different ways that aren't conducive to a winning football team culture, then maybe you do need to blow the whole thing up.
McLeod is a better, like, pure pocket passer. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. And maybe that's what the coaches want. Maybe they're just not seeing Trey making the reads as fast as he needs to make them in practice and that kind of stuff. But some things you can't measure, at least I think.
I get that, but on the other token, like, if you have Trey Ford in there and you know that you have to have the opposing teams are going to have to spend at least half of their time game planning to stop him from running, not to mention focusing on his pass game. And when he's running around, he's not the kind of quarterback who isn't accurate when he's running around. He has that accuracy there. So to me, like, this is when they were losing. Once they got rid of Chris Jones, like, that was the time to rock with Trey Ford for the rest of the year, in my opinion. I know he got hurt and McLeod got a little bit hot, so I get that, but you can't go back to him and he has one bad half against, one of the better defenses in the league and then be like, yeah, no, kid, sorry, you're just not ready. Like, he needs to go through those growing pains. He can't, sit on the bench and wonder. He's got to work that stuff out in the games. And that's another reason why I think that he's souring on the team and the coaching staff because of the way that they're yo-yoing with him.
I'm not an offensive magician, but I think it would have been valuable to use both of them in a game. And generally, I'd rather see one guy get into a flow. But if you even put Trey out there for short yardage, I know they like Prukop doing that. But if he's out there for short yardage, I think you got to pay attention to multiple things. And if they can work in those plays, we've seen other teams do it. But the Elks haven't really tried that at all. On the Riders side, Deontay Williams, you remember that incident at the end of the game against Ottawa on Saturday. He had his hearing with the CFL. He did say that he did talk to Khalil Pimpleton. Things are good. He says Pimpleton forgave him and things like that. So he explained his side of the things to the CFL, but by the time you hear the pod, you might know the decision. Whether there's going to be a one-game suspension or a fine or both, anything like that. So by the time you hear the pod, you'll know about that. A question. What's that?
Sorry, it looks like the Riders are anticipating it too because reports out of practice are that he hasn't been practicing with the starters as well. So take that with how you want.
Okay, now, my question is what's going to happen at running back for the Riders? Rock Armstead wearing a sling, and it does look like A.J. Ouellette has been back at practice, and it has been said that Corey Mace wants to see his guys do it in practice before he puts them into a game. Could Bertrand Houdon get the snaps? Could it be Frankie Hickson? Or are they going to go back to AJ for this one against Edmonton?
I don't see it being AJ. Like you said, Mace has been kind of getting the players to practice first. I believe this is the 6th game that he'd be out. So I think that's why he's been able to practice, is because he's on that last week before coming off. Like I said, and I don't know if he's telling the fans the truth or not, but before the game, he did tell me that he's checking. It looks to be trending to him getting back for the BC game. So hopefully the BC game, or even after the bye week, that's another extra week for him there too. But I think it's really important because the last time he came back, he obviously came back a little too quickly because he injured himself again right away. So the Roughriders need. We've seen what happens when their rushing attack works in the past couple games. It's helped them win games, so they need that going down the stretch. And it's going to be Frankie Hickson getting the start. He's been a healthy scratch the past couple weeks, so I assume he'll get in there. But maybe they do put Bertrand Houdon in for a few more series than usual, just because of how good he ran the ball when Armstead got hurt last week.
Yeah, Armstead hasn't practiced. Neither has Sean Bain Jr. It does look like maybe Jareth Stearns could get back into the lineup for the Roughriders and fit right in with Bain being out. Offensive lineman Jacob Bramner didn't practice Tuesday, limited on Wednesday. It feels like by now the Riders will be getting pretty thin at O-line with all the injuries that have been happening there. It's been a crazy year for them, man, but they're hanging in there.
Well, yeah, this is why, like, I thought it was weird last week where they had Bramner as a game time decision on the depth chart, but they took, Nick Jones off the depth chart. Now this week, it seems that Nick Jones is practicing again in his spot. So obviously, again, maybe he wasn't quite ready to go back and they put him back for whatever reason. But I thought Nick Jones actually did a pretty good job when he's in there. So we'll see him slot back in there too. But yeah, these it's just I'm less worried about who wins. I'm just more worried about what injuries are going to happen in this game, because it just seems like every single week there's one or two guys that you're adding to the 6 game every single week.
And now Baldonado, number 95, the D lineman for the Riders, hasn't practiced this week. He's a global player, but man, the last couple of weeks, he had a sack last week. He had a sack against Calgary the week before. He's been playing pretty well. But the Riders' D-line depth, that is definitely a strength of the team. And if he misses, I'm sure they'll have another person stepping up. Because did Brian Cox miss against the Red Blacks? He's back practicing. He was dealing with an illness, I guess.
Yeah, I believe he's back. And then in the linebacker groups, what's his face?
Herdman Reed is practicing back, so
he's back, as well as Brooks Jr. has been practicing with the ones too a bit, I believe too. So we'll see if he looked really good in the preseason. So I know a lot of Rider fans were looking for him to crack the roster right at the beginning. So it'll be interesting to see if he can still go.
This time of year, there's always somebody that gets onto the roster, playoff team or not, that maybe we saw light it up in the preseason and finally get their opportunity and become a late season hero. There could be somebody doing that this year.
You mean like what happened last year with this year's MOP, Roland Milligan Jr.? I agree.
You still think he's your guy, or are you just campaigning?
Both. I am biased, but at the same time, I even looked at on Twitter today. Even Derek Taylor said that he's struggling right now to find a reason to not have Roland Milligan be his MOP pick. So even if the rival broadcaster can admit something like that, I think it's okay for me to say it.
Now, I don't think I would be opposed to him winning, but the deck is stacked against DBs just because.
For sure.
And because if you don't hear their name, it's usually a good thing. But he's around the play and he's getting interception. He's making lots of tackles and things like that. But what a weird
special
season.
Teams. It's the special teams for me that I think is adding to the outstanding part, because he's typically those, all CFL defensive backs or players, they're not playing as much special teams because they want to stay ready for, their actual assignments. But he's leading the league in special teams tackles as well. So I just think that has to add to the outstandingness of his season.
65 tackles, 19 special teams tackles, 7 interceptions on the year for Roland Milligan so far. Man, yeah, that's he's had an awesome year, and there's no doubting that. The Riders have won a couple in a row here. What are they going to get from Edmonton? And Commonwealth Stadium has always been a difficult place to play for them. Historically, It's been a tough place to play for anyone. But the Riders, going to Commonwealth, personally, I've always expected a loss. So,
Same.
We'll see what happens on Saturday. Hopefully, the chili is sitting well in my gut, and the performance on the field is sitting well as well.
Jealous.
Are there some things in chili that are a must-have for you? I love having the corn in there. Not every chili has corn, but I'm down with the corn.
I also enjoy corn in my chili, but it's just gotta, like, the chili's gotta have spice to it. It can't be a bland chili. That's for me. Like, you can't skip on that chili powder, and then lots of just, thick veggies. I just like to have a nice thick chili.
Okay, so
I don't know why I had to do that, but
my coworkers, they were in a chili cook-off on on Saturday. They won it, so congratulations to Tony and Graham. But there was a full Kevin Malone moment. So this guy is partaking in. He had 2 slow cookers. So the one, he ran out, so he ran to get the other slow cooker, trips over a power cord, and Kevin Malone's it in the parking lot. So let's hope that does not happen in Edmonton, or maybe the Seagulls are going to be very happy. Do not spill the chili. Don't do it, whatever you do.
Yeah. My mom makes a mean chili.
Does she?
She has won cook-offs.
Oh.
Yes. I think I'm going to need her to make me some now, because I have FOMO of you getting to judge all those wonderful chilies.
Now, is it one of those things where there is a set recipe to it, or is it just one of those mom things, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and voila, magic?
Well, she wrote out the recipe for me once, and I tried making it. It was almost as good. So I think there's definitely magic in there too. But she hasn't made it for a while, so I think it's gonna have to send her a text message tomorrow and say it's time to make some chili.
Week 17 of the CFL season is on the way. I'm going to go through my fantasy lineup. I've got Nathan Rourke as my quarterback and my captain. William Stanback and James Butler as my running backs. Geno Lewis, Keyshawn Johnson, Ontario Wilson are my receivers. And I've got the Rider defense, Sheldon.
Well, we are somewhat similar. I have Nathan Rourke as my quarterback and captain. My running backs are William Stanback and James Butler. Receivers, Justin McInnis, Reggie Bagleton, and my flex is Rankin. And I have the Hamilton Tiger Cats defense with $0 remaining.
$0. I always appreciate that. I am taking the Bombers, the Lions, and the Riders. Who do you got?
I don't know why, but I'm taking the Ticats, the Lions, and the Riders.
You believe. You believe.
I believe and believe I. 3 people will get that, and that's great.
Hey, those are the 3 people we love.
It's breaking out. The Savannah Bananas did a Joe Hendry song at their game, so it's taken off. Say his name and he appears.
I know the Ticats have had, the Nature Boy at Tim Hortons Field. They've got the Arkells. I feel like they could get Joe Hendry to do I Believe in Bo Levi. If they win this game, it's got to happen. It has to happen. Oh, wow. And have I been saying week 17? It's week 18.
There you go.
We need a fact checker on this show. You can rate review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. Check us out on YouTube. Check out the website, twoandout.ca, and we will talk to you recapping Week 18 in the CFL after the weekend.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.